Welcome to He is Hope. I'm Jennifer. I would love to hear from you. Email me at jennifer@heishope.org. Oh my goodness, you guys. Become a member. Join our movement and look at our merch and flip through the magazine full of helpful resources. Go to heishope.org. We have a guest on today in a horrific motorcycle accident that became a miracle. I'd like to introduce you to my good friend, Eric Nelson. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Good. It's so good to see you, brother.
You as well. You as well.
So you know what? I want to first get into the motorcycle accident.
Okay.
So let's talk about what exactly happened. Interesting enough of when you decided to go on a motorcycle ride. What time was it?
It was about 10:45 at night, and the weather was perfect, and just kind of decided, tonight would be a great night for a ride. And so I was on the San Rayburn Tollway, coming up to the Carrollton Parkway area, and I had literally just said to myself, "What a great night for a ride!" And about that time, I had 15 riders on sport bikes that came upon me. 3 buzzed me on the left, 2 on the right. And the term buzzing is basically it means they come within inches of you, and it literally just scares the crap out of you. And I was doing 70 miles an hour, and it was later determined they were doing 120 miles an hour.
Wow, that is fast and so late at night. You had said something interesting. Why would they be so reckless that late at night? Where had they just come from?
There's some place in Dallas that it's on Thursday nights. Typically, it's called Bike Night, and that's where a lot of these guys will hang out at. And then once they leave the bars, they get on the highways, and not all of them, but a lot of them drive very recklessly.
And how'd
And
you find this out?
it's kind of widely known there in the Dallas metroplex area, especially in the
Okay,
summer nights. It's well known place.
okay, okay.
So
I didn't know if you saw the police report of what happened.
no, I just knew what goes on Thursday night and stuff, but was not expecting what had happened. So again, I had 3 buzzmen on the left and 2 on the right, and the sixth rider in the group, state troopers, they said, he probably just misjudged the speed of which he was going, what I was going. But the sixth rider in the group slammed into the back of me, and my head hit his helmet. And by the grace of God, I did not go down, but
Right, but
my
you
body,
didn't have a, let's touch on that too. You didn't have a helmet on.
no,
That's a big
no,
part of this story is
yeah,
the fact that you were riding a motorcycle without a helmet on. So your
yeah,
bare head hit his helmet.
yeah, it hit my helmet, and it knocked me out. I was laid out across my upper torso was hanging on the right side of my bike, and my left leg was kind of dragging behind me. And the bike that I rode was a road glide, so it had a fixed fairing, and I think that played a lot into it. Whereas a street glide, the fairing is mounted to the forks, and so the wind would have played a huge factor in that. But because of the fixed fairing, it literally just straightened up and slashed right through the wind and just continued going down the highway. And went about 125, 135 yards, and I was able to regain consciousness and took control of the bike and was able to slow it down and set it down to my own power. And took a few steps off the bike and turned around, and my knees just kind of buckled, and I went down to the ground face first, and was just kind of in shock, trying to process everything that had just happened. And the crazy thing about it, when I did regain consciousness, now it's 10:45 at night, so obviously it's very dark.
Right.
But the doctors explained to me what it's called though. But essentially, when your body receives a jolt, trauma, it's kind of like how can I say it, like for a power strip that has the shock thing on it. Your senses are amplified tenfold, and
Right.
so I could see everything as if it was 7:30 in the evening. I mean, I could see everything from miles. And but once I went down on the ground, it's all back to dark again. And I had four of the riders. Two, the last two were actually females that got off their bike and are looking at me. And even though I'm face down, my eyes are still open. I'm just trying to process everything that has happened. And so out of my peripheral, I could see them. And I looked up and I said, please help me. And they both said, you're all right. And they got on the bikes and took off. And I guess adrenaline kicked in because I got very, very angry. And I stood up. And when I stood up, people who could not see me before now sees there's another rider. And I actually heard a lady. Her name was Renee. I got to know her later. She goes, "Oh my God, there's another one over here," and everybody's running towards me as I'm walking towards some of the riders where they're still around some of their buddies that are on the ground, and I'm literally going to fight. I mean, I've already made up my mind. I'm fixing to fight, and some of the people that got to me started grabbing at me and saying, "Sir, lay down," and I'm saying, "Get off me," and being very combative with them.
Right. I'm sure you were in complete shock, and you say there's
Yeah,
bikes and bodies all over the road late
yeah,
at night, and you just got hit in the head and knocked out. I can't even imagine the state of mind you were in at that point.
yeah, yeah. So, like I say, I was determined what I was going to do, and one of the people that was around me, fortunately, I guess for me, grabbed me and said, "Sir, you've got to be hurt. Look at your bike." And I turned around and looked at the damage on the bike, and it was really jacked up. And I said, "Okay, maybe I am hurt," And so
Right.
they had me lay back down, and I've got photos and stuff that I can share with you later on. One of the photos, somebody had taken a photo at the scene of me laying down with emergency personnel around me, starting to work on me, and uh, it was just a very surreal moment. There was absolute chaos, going all around me, and at one point, there's a helicopter that was taking off, taking one of the riders away, and they're probably about 30 feet of me as it were taken off, and so again, it was a very very surreal scene, and I ended up getting loaded into an ambulance, and I was taken to Parkland Hospital in Dallas, and Parkland is an amazing facility. They're a level 5 trauma center, one of the top ones in the country, and they have a team of people that just ascend on you. And the lead doctor in the thing is, people are yelling out things, 48-year-old male, injured to the back, and he's checking my vertebrae. He's going down every one of my vertebrae. Keeps asking me, "Does that hurt? Does that hurt?" And I say, "No." And he goes, "I thought you said your back hurt." I said, "It does, mid right side." And on my Harley, I had what's called a tour pack. And in one of the photos I have, you can actually see the impression of the handlebars from the rider that hit me. And the corner of the tour pack caught me in the mid right side of my back. So I had soft tissue damage there. And um, so the doctor orders x-rays. Can't see anything on the x-ray. So he orders an MRI. And the state troopers were just finishing questioning me, and the ER doctor, I can see him at the foot of my bed. He's kind of shaking his head, looking at these images, and he asked the trooper, says, "Who was the guy on the Harley?" And he said, "That guy right there." He said, "How fast was he going?" He said, 70. He said, "The people that hit him said 120. He goes, "Mister, you've taken a 50-mile-an-hour impact on a motorcycle without a helmet." He says, "You have no internal injuries, no broken bones, no internal bleeding, not even road rash." And then he said, "The one thing that 5 other people said to me, he'd been the fifth. The first person that got to me, emergency personnel, paramedics, state troopers, and then finally he said, "You know you should be dead, right?" And I won't
Right.
tell you exactly what I said, but I said, you know, then why am I still here? And he goes, "Mister, there's only one person can answer that question. You're going to have to talk to him."
Who's that person, Eric?
Jesus Christ.
The only reason that you're still alive right now, because there's no other reason.
No.
You going 70, them going 120, the guy that hits you,
Yeah.
and then you had no helmet on, and then you when you crash, you hit his helmet, and then there's all these other motorcycles crashing around. It sounded kind of like a domino effect. Like
It
they hit
was.
you, one goes down, they all go down. There's this big mess of motorcycles and bodies everywhere, and
Yeah.
you walk away from this
Yeah.
really without a scratch, not even road rash.
No. No.
Like
I
only God can save you from something, a crash that's that horrific.
yeah. Yeah. And he did. And there's no doubt.
And who didn't you mention to me, out of all, how many were there again?
There was 15 riders, and 2 of the riders died, unfortunately. The guy that hit me died. The guy next to him went down when he went down. Another rider had a traumatic brain injury, and 4 other riders had gone down as well. And uh, all the riders, once they started hearing sirens, those that could all fled the scene. They left everybody laying there.
Um,
That's kind of shows you, I guess, the type of friends they had or whatever, which is pretty sad, in and of itself. But
what did you
I
find out about where they came from?
it was I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 days later that I'd found out. I didn't even know where my bike was for several days. Nobody really seemed to know. And finally, I think it was the state troopers that told me where it was at. And I remember when I drove to the impound yard where the bike was at and where all the other bikes are at. There was an SUV and it was really darked out windows, and I could tell it was a police unit. And the guy that was on the scene, he looked like kind of a Harley rider and stuff, long hair, goatee, and he was an investigator for the state. What do you call it? The Texas Department, for the state troopers and everything. And uh, when he looked at me, I guess he kind of knew. He says, "You must be the guy who was on the Harley." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Sorry for your views here." He goes, "Must have been one hell of a crash." He said, "Because your bike's jacked up." He goes, "I'm surprised you're even walking here." I said, "Mister, I walked out of the hospital 6 hours later after this crash." Again, I won't tell you what he said, but you kind of imagine the stuff.
That's crazy. And didn't you mention that the guys, that where did those guys come from and where did the bikes come from?
Uh, it was found out that all the riders were illegals, and all the bikes were all stolen.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a big mess. One thing I do want to say, for a long time, I carried a lot of anger and a lot of hatred for those guys, and for anyone on a sport bike for that matter. I had a young lady that I've always called mom. This woman actually was a substitute teacher when I was in the ninth grade, and first time I ever met her, and the woman just kept staring at me. And finally, when I turned my paper in, I said, "Miss Lindsay, I got to ask you, you keep staring at me. Why?" And she goes, "I need to show you a picture." And she showed me a picture of one of her boys. And I have a twin, but apparently I have a third twin. So this kid looked just like me. And we became fast friends. And I've always called her mom ever since. And a few years ago, out of the blue, she calls me and she goes, "Hey, I've been thinking about your crash. And I have to ask you, did you ever forgive the guys who hit you?"
Mm.
And I immediately started bawling because I hadn't. I hadn't up to that point. this whole thing is it's been like an evolving story. Just when I think I've reached the final chapter, there's a new page that gets added, and it took a lot. It took a lot for me to forgive them because, like I said, I'm not only angry at them, I was angry at God.
Right.
That at the time,
Because that Harley, as you had mentioned, was just like a part of you, right? It was
yeah,
so special to you. And I know that we do attach ourselves and even sometimes our self-worth to things or people.
yeah.
And it sounds like you really had attached yourself to this Harley. And I would love to talk about, so it's interesting. I've known you since you and Lisa got married, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I've always known you as Eric, the Christian, Lisa's husband.
Yeah.
Uh, I didn't know that before Jesus or before you were walking with the Lord, man. And so when you told me your story, I was like, really? I mean, we all have a story, but you got a really powerful story. So tell us what kind of man you were.
I was not a good man by any stretch of the imagination. In my first marriage, it was a very tumultuous relationship, and I'm not speaking badly of her. It just the facts are what they are. She she has severe bipolar disorder, and it caused a lot of hell, in my relationship and my kids' relationship, with us as parents. There was constant fighting. When she'd be on her medication, things would be great. But then she didn't think she needed it. She'd get off of it. And for lack of better words, there was hell to pay for everybody. Everybody suffered from it. I, uh, I'm ashamed to admit it, but especially towards the end, I was not a good husband. I mean, I didn't care anymore. Cheated. I got really good at lying, at manipulating, at hurting people. I just was not a good person. I became a very ugly human being, a very lost human being. I kept feeling about in October of 2012, there was this feeling that came on me. And for the next 3 months, it was a very powerful feeling, and I didn't know what it was. Um, I can only describe it as this gnawing, nagging force that would not leave me alone. And on January 2nd, 2013, I finally gave in to what this force was because that morning I was at my house by myself. Don't know where my then wife was, and I'd already filed for divorce. My kids were off someplace. And I remember that morning I was in the mirror in my kids' bathroom and stuff, and I'm like just inches from the mirror, just looking at myself. And I literally just said, it's like, I don't even know who you are anymore. I was so lost. I was just a shell of a human being. And I went into my kitchen and I started praying. And I said the words, God, help me to be a better person. And for the first time in my life, I audibly heard a voice behind me that said, the only person keeping you from me is you.
Wow.
And I didn't turn around. I knew who it was. And I said, I'm done. I'm done living the way I've been living. I'm yours. I'll do whatever you want. That kind of leads me to my relationship with my wife, Lisa, because in October there was this picture that she posted of herself. And for whatever reason, I was drawn to this picture. And
And you knew
anytime I
each other
got,
in high school, right?
yeah, we went to high school together. We were just friends in high school, nothing, we didn't date or anything like that. And she graduated a year ahead of me. But this picture, there was something about this picture. Every time I got on Facebook, I had to go look at it. And I was drawn to her. And normally I've always had the gift of gab and way with words and stuff. And I
Were you a
remember that.
smooth talker, a
Oh
charmer?
my gosh, yeah. I thought I was ladies' man. I thought I was it. I was.
They all do.
Greatest thing since sliced bread. But I
And so
remember,
how did it go when you tried a smooth talker? I love this part of the story.
well, I was going to send this message on Messenger, and for 2 hours, I mean, I'm not exaggerating, for 2 hours, I sat there and looked at my phone, and I couldn't come up with a sentence, let alone a paragraph. And
And why
the
do you
man,
think that was, Eric?
because Lisa later told me, what it was behind that picture and stuff. She was experiencing a lot of pain and stuff, from failed relationships herself and everything. And um, God needed me to be the person that she needed. And at that time, I was not the person. I would have wrecked everything had I been able to reach out to her. And there's not a doubt in my mind that God kept me from, he wouldn't put the words in my head. He wouldn't let me say
He was
anything to her.
protecting her.
Exactly, exactly. And so after I gave myself, uh, saw a picture, and I got on my phone and I sent the most respectful message I could have possibly sent to her. I said, "Hey, listen, I don't know if you're seeing anybody. If you are, I'll bow out, no disrespect. But if not, I would love to get together with you sometime and catch up. I said, I just really like, to get to know you better." And that started everything. And I've always told Lisa, I said, you're my gift from God,
Mhm.
because I wouldn't have her if it wasn't for him. If it wasn't for him, changing the person that I was. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I've always believed in God, but my attitude was I always kept him at arm's length.
Right.
I said, yeah, I know you're there. And if I need you, I'll let you know. You know, I had that kind of attitude. And, and even after that moment when I gave myself to Christ, it was a couple weeks later. I'm in my car, and I was living up North Texas, and I'm driving to Houston, and I'm going to go do an arbitration up there. And I'm in my car and I'm praying, and I said out loud for the first time, "Thank you for not letting me die the night of my crash." And my pride and my ego and my arrogance, it was through the roof. I mean, just through the roof. And when I said that, I not only had 1,000 pounds lifted off my shoulder, I had 10,000 pounds. I never felt more free in my life. And I just profusely kept thanking God, because up to that moment, I never thanked him for letting me live through that. So again, this is just, every time I think that, the book is done, if you will, it's just a new page keeps getting added and stuff. So this story is far from done. And even when I get to do what I want to do, ultimately there's going to be so many new pages written, because, you know, everybody who knows me knows my story. They've all said, "Man, you need to share your testimony." And
Absolutely.
coolest thing about everything is that I actually have the video of the crash, which I shared with you. And to see this crash, I mean, it's mind
And
blowing.
we're going to attach this to the show so that everyone can see it.
Sure. So what I ultimately want to do is, uh, and the greatest thing about it is that I actually have the bike still that I rode that night of the crash. I had an awesome gentleman who, I was initially told that I had to have a new bike, and he said the frame was too badly damaged, and I found out where the bike was at. I went and talked to the owner of the place, and I said, "Do you know the story behind that bike?" And he goes, "Yeah, I was in some crash." I said, "It wasn't just any crashes. Can I show you the video?" And he goes, "You got video?" And I go, "Yeah." So I showed it to him, and I told him what I wanted to do, and he goes, "I got you, brother." He goes, "It's going to cost you more for me to fix that bike." He said, "But I'll make it stronger than when I left the factory, and you can make it a daily rider." And I even told the guy, I said, "Look, I know what you're doing for me, and I know, the risk of this." I said, "I'll sign a release of waiver." And he goes, "I don't need one." He says, "I know what I'm doing to that bike." And so when this bike is done and I get to tell my story and play that video, the thing that I end it with, and I'm going to end it with, is I can say that, and just like the Phoenix, not only did I rise, but the bike you see in that video, so did it. And I'm doing a full frame off custom restoration on that bike with the paint job. And I knew what I wanted to do. When I wanted to do this, I knew the name I wanted on the back of that bike, and it's Resurrection,
I
because
love
it's
it.
the most appropriate name I can give the bike. And the on the image of it, on the back of it, it's got a Christ crown of thorns that are coming underneath the word resurrection, and there's blood pooling on the thorns. And at the bottom of the fender, you can see an outline of a person's wrists that are bound in chains. And they're doing a solenoid, so when you hit the brakes, the blood actually drops from the thorns, and then the image on the chain, it looks like it breaks, and it flashes on the chain, so it breaks the chain, because the single drop of Christ's blood can break the chain of any man. And
I
then
love that.
on the side of it, it has this demonic creature that's got his hand over this person who's on his knees, and his arms are outreached. He's crying out for mercy, and you see light coming off his back, and this creature is trying to take his soul. But then the light emits forward, and it moves forward and goes to the ferry, and it morphs into a phoenix. So to fall to the ashes to rise again is the theme of the bike. That's what I want to do. Is I want to travel around to churches and bike rallies, and whoever will have me, where I share my story, and I want to share my testimony and bring people to Christ, and that's ultimately what I want to do.
I love it. And you know what? God had to allow you to go through this so that you would have this testimonial. And then he had to obviously change you. And then he had to give you this godly wife to walk with you. And was it day before yesterday was your 11-year anniversary with Lisa?
Actually, on the 15th, yes,
On
April
the
15th, she
15th.
made it really easy. We taxied.
Congratulations.
Yeah, not only
I
was
love
our
that.
anniversary, it was her birthday too. So
I love it. She is such a good, godly woman and beautiful, just as beautiful on the inside as the outside. And I'm just telling you, God really hooked you up.
oh, he did, and I always joke. I always say I pray to God our eyesight never improves, or I'm screwed, because she hadn't seen what I really look like.
She's 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 so awesome, and you two together are just a beautiful couple that love the Lord. And matter of fact, when I met you guys, I believe you had just gotten married, didn't you? I
Uh,
could have sworn you
we
guys said
we
you had just gotten
actually,
married.
I don't think we were married at the time. We hadn't gotten married yet, because we got married, like I say, on her birthday, April 15th of 2013, and we had it was at the party that I met you before. We were still just I think we were engaged at the time though. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. And I met you guys and I'm like, oh my gosh, I like them and they love the Lord. And then you guys go and move.
yeah,
So you're
yeah.
like 5 hours away now or so in like
About
the
four, yeah, near
about
Houston,
four
yeah,
hours away. So
yeah,
yeah, so thank goodness I'm doing this show now, not in a studio. So that helps so much to be able to get my friends and other stories that have testimonials that don't necessarily have to be in Dallas.
yeah.
But I'm very proud of you, Eric. I'm so proud that
Thank
you
you, Jennifer.
want to tell your story and that you're willing to be vulnerable for the Lord. And,
Yeah.
even with, everyone likes a good story of the bad boy reformed by Jesus. That's what you
Well,
are.
and it's like, I mean, and I always tell people this too. It's like, when you give yourself to Christ, it's a very powerful thing. And I said, one thing you got to be ready for is stuff. I said, you're going to get really in touch with your emotions, because
Right.
I mean, it was hard for me to cry and stuff, and now I cry some of the stupidest things though, but it's kind of like, I mean, I've got tattoos and everything like that, and I'm, kind of a big guy and stuff, and uh, you know, it's going to be kind of funny, because people say, yeah, I saw this big, tatted up burly guy at church and stuff, he'll bring me to the Lord, and so, like I said, I mean, it's all walks of life, and you know, there's people who out there who don't feel like they're worthy, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what you've done. That's the thing about God. There's no judgment. You give yourself to Him, and He gives Himself back to you fully. And now I'm no saint. I still make mistakes just like everybody does. I'm still human. But I do. I strive to live my life in a way that's pleasing to Him, and just equally as important is pleasing to my wife. I can be a bit of a challenge for her.
But she
Although
has
I guess,
God, so all she has to be is like, Lord, get him.
well, yeah, I mean, she has to tell God a lot to get me. So I'm definitely I give her a run for her money a lot of times and stuff, But no,
I
I
love it.
do. I love her more than anything on this, on this planet. I mean, she's everything to me and stuff, And
I love it. I love that's what you want to do is just serve the Lord
yeah,
and tell your testimonial, and even going to put it in the magazine as well. I
yeah.
love. So thank you for coming on the show and sharing your testimonial, brother. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for allowing this opportunity. This is actually the very first time I've been allowed really to speak on this type of format and forum. And, like I said, I want to be able to change people's lives. And it's just, if I bring one person to Christ, put that on my
All
tombstone,
for
that's
his
my
glory.
milestone. Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
Amen.
I
Thank you
love
so
it.
much, Jennifer.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys all for tuning in today. And to see more shows, go to heishope.org. We've got another great show for you next week. God bless you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Bye, everybody.